Sup, nerd? Keep playing bad games. Or, you know what, that's a little over the top. Keep playing games you don't like. Or at least, stop regretting it. I recently went back and replayed every Assassin's Creed game. These were my favorite games in high school. I stopped playing around Unity, but I was really interested in finding out how they evolved after I stopped playing them. Turns out, I really like most of them still. Except the RPGs. And yet, I 100%ed every single one. That's a video for another time. Now, while I was doing this, a multi-year endeavor, by the way, I got a lot of comments from friends. I can't believe you're still doing this. I would have given up ages ago. Why are you still playing this? You clearly hate these games. Why are you doing this to yourself? But here's the thing. Despite not enjoying the last 400-ish hours of the playthrough, I don't regret having done it. In fact, I'm glad I did, and given the chance to have that time back, I don't think I would have spent it any differently. Why? I'm glad I asked. So here's the thing. With Assassin's Creed specifically, I had a feeling I would dislike them going in. I just had no idea why. The reason why is, of course, for another video. But playing through them opened my eyes. For me, my journey into hell was a spiritual one of discovery, not only of these abstruse sequels to my beloved childhood games, but also of myself. Of course, not all experiences begin in this way. Sometimes there's a game you wholeheartedly believe you'll love and it ends up not measuring up to the expectations. For example, I really expected to love Costume Quest. Now, I can't remember what I said in my reviews for this series, but if you want to peek behind the curtains a little bit, I didn't have a ton of fun with these games. I found them repetitive and uninteresting overall, despite my affinity for their theming and aesthetic. Yet somehow, Costume Quest 1 and 2 have become some of my most nostalgic experiences. If you're willing to play through something with a critical eye, you would be surprised at how much you can learn. You could discover things about yourself that you didn't realize, your habits, your strengths, your flaws. You can realize what exactly gives you the connection you have with the things you do like, and it can strengthen those connections, make your bond stronger, and set up new experiences to be even better for it, because you're consciously prepared for it. It can even make future disappointing experiences less disappointing, because of how you've learned from them in the past. At least, if you like learning about yourself in that way. If you're ever wondering how gaming YouTubers like GMTK learn about game development, a lot of it is through playing games and thinking critically about them. When we do this, we start noticing patterns. We find interesting things hidden everywhere. When our gears get turning like that, it motivates us to go read more about it, find out the motivations behind those patterns and decisions, and teach ourselves and others why our favorite games are the way they are. It's also a part of how developers learn design principles. If you don't already know, I also like to make games. If you're like me, then playing stuff you don't like, and I mean really powering through it, can make you realize all the nuances about a game you don't like. Then you can take that knowledge and apply it elsewhere. Implement all the same stuff, but without the parts you don't like. That's how games in general get better with time. When I do this, even if I never end up using that knowledge, I end up with a weird sense of accomplishment. I do have some level of pride about playing so much dang Assassin's Creed. For me, it's because I finally caught up with this franchise I cared so much about when I was younger. But for you, it could be that you found a game really challenging. Maybe you're proud of yourself for making it through. Maybe it even challenged you enough to get better at other games you haven't tried yet. That was the case for me when I finished Celeste. Also, if you appreciate games as art, then you probably appreciate diverse implementations. This is something you see in fans of any art form, but let's take music as an example. Say you like rock music and generally don't branch out too far from there. One day, you give blues a chance, and you start to notice similar patterns between these new blues songs and the rock music you usually listen to. You start to understand the origins of the music you love, and it increases your enjoyment of it. Then somewhere along the way, your palette expands. Suddenly you like ska. Of course, nothing I'm saying here is going to apply to everybody. There will always be exceptions, but most people will find that if they only ever stick with what they know and love, those things will likely go bland over time. Something has to evolve and change, so obviously you see it less often in games that change over time, like multiplayer competitive titles or anything with a battle pass. Live service. But if your favorite game is BioShock, you really run the risk of overexposure. Think about it. You've played through the story and seen the cool twist for the first time, and you're reeling back, mind blown. This is the coolest shit ever. And then you play through it a second time. You're still having fun, discovering a few new things here and there, but the story isn't a surprise anymore. The next time you play through, the mechanics haven't changed. You're doing the same old things over again. It's not as interesting. Over time, you decide to play other games like BioShock. You break out Atomic Heart, but it doesn't hit the same. But why? The formula's pretty similar, the gameplay's familiar. I don't get it. This is where diverse interests come in. If you're constantly mixing things up, you're playing BioShock, but you're also playing Control and Jet Set Radio and, The Wolf Among Us. Everything is different and new. Suddenly, even though you're still playing the things you played before, everything else feels exciting. Less predictable, less formulaic. Playing stuff that isn't what you already know you like will make you more open to trying new things, even if most of those things end up being something you don't like. It's inevitable that you'll discover a new favorite eventually. It's never fun to fall into the trap of not starting a new game just because you think you won't like it. This is a trap I've fallen into a bunch of times. I still haven't given any Souls games a proper chance, for example, or Persona, or a myriad of other games. But there are a few times where I've managed to avoid it. I never thought I would like Fortnite. I've always been a fan of Battle Royale games, despite my lack of skill in any of them. But there was always something about Fortnite that kept me from giving it a shot. I never liked the idea of the building mechanic, and I always viewed the game as for kids. No offense to anybody who plays it. When I finally did give it a shot, shortly after No Build was released, it finally made sense to me. The controls were snappy, the game felt good to play, it gave you fun feedback. The matches were shorter than other battle royales, so they were more manageable. Everything about the game felt great. I've since stopped playing because I do have gripes with the game and how it's operated that I struggle to look past. Let me know in the comments if you want me to expand on that in its own video. But the point here is, I now understand why so many people love the game so much. I get it. And honestly, despite spending a fair amount of time and money on the game over a couple of years, I kind of miss it. Not in a way that I can ever see myself going back to it in any sort of regular basis, but that gameplay loop is now ingrained in me as something that I love. It's kind of like when you're a kid and there's some food that you hate. Maybe you tried it once and hated it, or maybe it smells bad, or you just think the idea of it is yucky. When you grow up and give the food a proper chance, a lot of people experience this thing where that food they hated becomes one of their favorites. Personally, I think it's important to try things you previously disliked to see if your opinions on it have changed, at least when it comes to food, but I do honestly believe that applies to games as well. I used to make a lot of game reviews on this channel, the whole analysis and critical thinking shtick that so many new YouTubers aspire to. Sometimes that involved playing games I don't like, or games I expected not to like it. The reason for that wasn't because I thought I would get more views, quite the contrary, actually. I did it because I thought it would make an interesting conversation. A lot of those videos led to long, thoughtful conversations with my friends about things we either disliked or liked, or even things we disagreed on. And I always found it fun to hear my friends' opinions on things and learn how they felt about stuff. I have friends who love some games that I really, don't. Like Call of Duty. Like Call of Duty. Like the new Assassin's Creed games. Never do I want to talk to a friend so I can convince them to not like this thing they like. It's important to remember these games aren't bad, they're just not for me. But by giving these games a shot and learning more about them, I'm able to have better conversations with those friends who have interests that differ from my own. I really love my friends. You know who you are. I want to talk to them about stuff they like, and I don't want them to feel judged for it. I'm not just playing games I don't vibe with for myself. I do it to relate to my friends, and I do it to talk about things on a deeper level. Because that's fun, and it strengthens my relationships. Anyway, I like Assassin's Creed way more now in a weird, roundabout sort of way. The fact that the new games didn't vibe with me actually makes me appreciate the older ones way more, and I'm so freaking glad that I got to grow up with those. When I started playing the new ones, there was this sort of glass shattering moment where I really started to understand why I loved the original so much. And that's something I will be eternally grateful for. So I have a call to action for you. Go out and play a game you don't think you'll like. Get used to the controls in Outer Wilds. Challenge yourself in a Souls game. See how it affects you. Maybe you'll learn something in the process. I'll catch you later.